Hi students. The next element that we're going to be discussing in the Elements of Literature packet is imagery. And as I read this to you, you have the choice of annotating along as I read or going back later on and doing your annotations or taking your notes. Okay, so let's begin. Imagery, seeing things freshly. Imagery is one of the elements that give poetry its forcefulness. Images are basically copies of things you can see. But images in poetry can do even more than help us see things. An image is a simple word or a phrase that appeals to one of our senses. An image can help us see color or motion. Sometimes it can also help us hear a sound, smell an odor, feel texture or temperature, or even taste a sweet, sour, or salty flavor. Suppose you were an artist and wanted to paint a picture of a house. You would emphasize certain aspects of the house. You might emphasize the age of the house by making its shingles look as worn and wrinkled, as cracked as an old shoe. Or you might emphasize the emptiness of the house by painting curtainless windows that reflect the clouds and doors opening into the empty hallways. In each case, as an artist, you would give the actual image, the house, a certain twist, a particular shading. Poets do the same thing. Edwin Arlington Robinson, in The House on the Hill, saw an empty house and emphasized its loneliness. Through broken walls and gray, the winds blow bleak and shrill. They are all gone away. Robert Frost, in The Black Cottage, saw an empty house and emphasized the new life that had moved in. There are bees in the wall. He struck the clapboards. Fierce heads looked out. Small bodies pivoted. We rose to go. Sunset blazed on the windows. Imagery is part of a poet's style. It is the product of the poet's own way of seeing the world. Just as we learn to recognize certain painters at once by noticing the colors and shapes that mark their works, so we learn to identify poets by paying attention to their imagery. Of course, the time and place in which poets live influence the kind of imagery they use. Poets who live in cities will usually draw upon the street scenes and industrial landscapes they know so well. Poets who live far from cities will usually draw from their images from what they see of country life. Imagery and feelings. An image can be so fresh, so powerful, that it can speak to our deepest feelings. An image can be so phrased that it makes us feel joy or grief, wonder or horror, love or disgust. Here is a poem that uses images to help us see a scene on the Great Lakes and hear the sounds made by a boat lost in the mist. But what readers remember most about this little poem is the way the images make them feel. Lost. Desolate and lone, all night long on the lake, where frog trails and mist creeps, the whistle of a boat, calls and cries unendingly, like some lost child, in tears and trouble, hunting the harbor's breasts and the harbor's eyes. Carl Sandburg. The poet should stop and examine what others have missed. Whether it be veins in a leaf or the surge of a mob, he should hear what others miss, not just skylarks, but the breath of an old man or sleet against the window. He should respond to the feel of a rusted iron railing, a cut, or a gull's feather. He should identify the variety of city smells and country odors and consider what it is that makes an unoccupied house different from one lived in. And he should taste not only food, but pine gum and smog. Okay, now that was a short reading. Again, if you haven't taken your annotations yet, you're going to want to go ahead and do that now. And thank you for listening.